Hi. So this week's material is about honesty, and specifically, you're reading the book The Honest Truth About Dishonesty by Dan Ariely. A book that came out in 2012, was a New York Times bestseller, is not filled with a lot of academic jargon, but sets up a series of fascinating experiments about honesty and how people are dishonest, especially to themselves. I have the book right here, and we'll talk a little bit about this in discussion boards, and I'll mention it in this video lecture, of course. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of honesty in public administration. Um, so, so people in general want to feel like they're honest. Honesty, if you ask people what their values are, a lot of times you hear about honesty as one of their primary values. Sometimes it is coupled with integrity, and so they'll be like, "Well, integrity is important," and I was always taught to be an honest person. And people take a couple of different approaches to explaining why it's important to be honest. Uh, some public administrators will talk about why it's important to be honest because it is something intrinsic. It's part of them. They take a principled approach. Like we've talked about the different theories, the different approaches to ethics. They take a very principled approach. It's important to be honest. I'm an honest person. I do good things, and I was always taught that being honest was was what makes people good people, and it's just part of me. I am an honest person, and so they make it about the principle that you should be honest. It's good. It's intrinsically good to be honest. They also make it about their character. I'm a good person. I do good things. I'm an honest person. That's what makes me a good person. I'm a good character. So it's a little bit of Aristotle's approach and a little bit of the principled approach. So the other way to look at honesty, when you get public administrators to talk about honesty in their jobs, like what does it do for you in your jobs? It becomes about building trust, and this works this way in the business world too. Lobbyists who lobby politicians, they have an incentive to be honest because if they don't present true information, they're going to lose the trust of the people they're working with. So people working in the private sector would argue, look, we have customers. If our customers can't trust us, then we're going to lose business, and that's going to be bad for our bottom line, and that's going to hurt our reputation. In the public sector, it's very similar. Except you don't have to worry about going out of business. It's similar in the sense that if you're a public official, a city manager, a police chief, if you lose the public trust or you lose the trust of your subordinates, then you're gonna have trouble managing your workplace, and you're gonna have trouble getting support from the public. So a lot of public administrators will talk about how honesty is important in order to build relationships, in order to build trust, in order to um, get people to cooperate with you, because you're not operating completely alone in the public sector. You have to worry about city council cooperating with the police department, um, and also gaining support from the public. So it becomes a lot about your credibility and building relationships. So there's a utilitarian reason to be honest too. There's an end to try and get that. Much like so with the lobbyist, a lobbyist gives information to members of Congress. Those members of Congress trust them that the information is good, and if the information is not good, or if they're lied to, they're not going to listen to that lobbyist in the future, and then that lobbyist isn't going to be able to get the policy outcomes that their group is looking for. So a lot of this is about building credibility and building trust. Now, there are times when you ask public officials, when is it okay to be dishonest? And there's a couple of different types of dishonesty when you talk to public officials that most of the responses fall into. Withholding information. So you see this a lot in criminal justice. The police will say, look, we're not outright lying, but we're going to withhold information because we don't want to compromise our investigation. So when a reporter comes to the police chief and says, do you have any suspects for this crime that is being reported on, and the police chief does, but they don't want to alert those suspects to flee the area, they might say, I can't comment on an ongoing investigation at the time, or no, we don't. No, we don't is a flat-out lie, and saying you can't comment is simply withholding information. So there's withholding information, and then there's a withholding of information to follow rules. Like, so sometimes public administrators are put into a situation where they're not allowed to tell employees a certain thing, that has a certain decision that's been made. So say city council has made a decision, but the city manager can't inform the staff yet. So they're withholding that information, and if they're asked about it, they're not allowed to say anything. So they would then be put into a position where they either outright lie or they withhold information, and they don't cooperate with people asking them questions. There's justifiable dishonesty, so the kind of dishonesty used to prevent harm. The kind of things that, in an investigation you are dishonest about the investigations so that you can get a criminal. The police force has a lot of leeway in the amount of deception they're allowed to use. So you can do some things in interrogation that are dishonest in order to get a confession. You're not supposed to outright coerce somebody into a confession, but you can do things like, we have you on video committing the crime. I have this DVD disc here that we can watch that shows you on video, and the DVD can be blank, and maybe you don't have video, but you're trying to trick them into a confession. A lot of the court system has decided that a lot of these tactics, these uses of deception, are okay. So there's a lot of deception used in investigations, and some to prevent harm in individuals. Preventing harm in individuals can be something little too, like white lies. A lot of teachers don't tell their students the blunt, honest truth about the students. They kind of sugarcoat things. So when the parents come to talk to them about little Joey and how they're doing in 4th grade, the teacher, who's, if you're in a public school, is a public employee, or the administrator might, well, Joey's doing okay, but he did this terrible thing, but Joe, here's something positive about Joey. They sugarcoat a little bit, not totally dishonest, but they might not be completely blunt in the fact that they don't like your kid. And that's because we have to maintain relationships, and you're not going to you're not going to cause trouble like that. So a lot of people won't tell them won't tell people bluntly how they feel about something. It's not dissimilar to when your spouse asks, "Do I look good in this?" And maybe you don't think they look good in that. The classic example. You tell them, this is okay. My wife tells me, yeah, you should wear totally orange shirts and orange Chuck Taylors. This is my Chuck Taylor. She tells me this looks okay, and I know I look like a clown. But anyway, so those are the different types. There's also the last one we need to talk about is unjustifiable dishonesty. This is dishonesty for personal gain. So, lying about an investigation can be unjustified in certain cases. The you know school officials being dishonest in ways that put the students that is just for personal gain, dishonest in ways they don't have to be to students, where in cases where they could be honest, but the honest truth is just harder to do, so they lie in order to because it's the path of least resistance. And then yeah, yeah. So sugarcoating could be considered an unjustifiable dishonesty because you you're not treating the other person with respect. So this is subjective as to what's justifiable and what's unjustifiable. Clearly, there are some things that rise to the level of clearly unjustifiable. Um, but the interesting thing is, we all want to think of ourselves as honest people, but then we all do dishonest things. And um, Ariely in his book, I want to talk a few minutes about, that we'll be discussing this week. I'm going to talk a few minutes about. Ariely sets up the book saying, people typically, we think of people being dishonest as a cost-benefit analysis, and they go, okay, I'm going to be dishonest if the cost of that dishonesty is low enough and the benefit is greater. So if the benefit of telling this lie is really good and the cost of me telling this lie is less than that, then I'm gonna be dishonest because it's gonna benefit me. It's a very um, uh, rational choice uh, uh, model. A rational choice model of honesty where if it benefits me to be dishonest and it's unlikely that I'll get caught being dishonest, then what I should go ahead and do is be dishonest. And that's how humans are wired. That is the default kind of equation that Ariely takes on, and what he argues is that actually, based on that cost benefit analysis, that's not actually true. What people do, they don't do a simple cost benefit analysis that, oh, if I can get away with it, I'll I'll be dishonest to the maximum. What people do, and what he argues, is that people are uh, uh, people want to view themselves as honest people. And so when they get the chance to cheat or be dishonest, we do so only to the extent that we can gain benefit from our dishonesty while still feeling like we're good people. So he sets up a series of really fascinating experiments that show that when you give people an opportunity to cheat, a blatant opportunity to cheat and get some benefit from it, people only do so to the extent that they cheat, but they don't cheat to the maximum that they can. They only do so to the extent that they feel they can get away with while still feeling like they're good people. And it's kind of it's an interesting argument. It's what explains why people go to a pop machine that is giving out free colas and they only take one free cola. They don't sit there and just hit the button and keep getting free colas. They take one because they go, well, the machine gave me a free cola. What the heck? It's $2. And you walk away going, I guess it's my lucky day. But if you sat there pressing the button, taking a free cola that you should have been paying for, then you're doing more than what you can feel good about still doing. Where you get the benefit and still feel like you're a good person. So anyway, it's a fascinating argument, and there's a number of experiments that we will talk about in the discussion boards, and that is all I have for you on honesty and dishonesty. Thanks.